Welcome, everyone, to another international episode of Coffee with Sales Engineers. I'm so excited today to have a sales engineering, or I should say, solutions consulting leader with us all the way from England. Tim Chinchen, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, great stuff. Looking forward to it, Sachin. So yeah, my name's Tim Chinchen. I work here at PagerDuty. So I effectively run our solution consulting. So I remember you mentioned, what are you? Pre-sales engineers, solution consultants. We went
Different
for
names.
consulting. I could even go into that shortly as well. So I run the global solution consulting team here, as well as value engineering falls under us as well. I took the decision, I joined PagerDuty 8 years ago in a EMEA leader role. And then, as I say, 3 years ago, took that leap into seeing what the global role would look like. I'll share with most people, it's a lot of late nights, but it's good fun nonetheless.
You've been doing solutions consulting for a long time. How did you ever learn about what this profession is? Obviously, you enjoy it.
See, interesting enough, I'm going to do very cheesy. It feels like just yesterday. For half of my career, I've done solution consulting, only 15 years. I actually felt I ended up into a manager role faster than I thought I would be as well.
Mm-hmm.
To go even all the way to the background. So I started off, do you know what? I'll even go to university. I was doing geography. I always talk about it. Geography was my least worst topic at school. Not best, least worst.
Least worst. I like that.
This is back in the mid-90s, and it was my uncle that said there's a great technology arising that you might be interested in. There's a university that's going to start doing a degree on it. They want barely any A levels. I was like, go and do it. And Tim, actually, you quite like this stuff. And it was a course called Geographical Information System, and this was in the early 90s. So one other course, loved it. So I was actually some of the very early kind of Windows desktop mapping systems and those sorts of things. And that's the world I entered into. Even to the point, I remember in 1998, 99, I was starting to show people, look, these mobile phones, I've put a map on a mobile phone. And everyone would sit there and look at it and say, no, that's absolute nonsense. That will never, ever take off. Why would you want to see where you're going, see where your nearest McDonald's is and all those sorts of things? I'm like, it's coming, trust me. And then what happened? Yeah, early 2000s, that stuff started to get commoditized by Google Maps. I was doing lots of rollouts. I worked with one of my last roles in post-sales. So when I left university, I worked for one of our local councils. Then I went into a post-sales services role, implementing mapping systems. My favorite post-sales role was I spent 4 years for the largest telco in Europe, helping them develop their fiber to the premise engineering systems so they could provision all the fiber now that we're all used to rolling our internet over. And that was effectively my last post-sales gig. I was looking for something else. What can I get my teeth into that I really enjoyed? As I say, I reached the post-sales level of solution architect, but I love the idea of doing some of the stuff that I did in post-sales, but doing it for a few weeks. So I love meeting people. At the time I realized I love meeting people for the first time. I love that excitement of, do you know what? We've got a connection, both personally and with the technology I've got. And that's the element I love. Getting into it, showing them, having that kind of the eyes opening up wide, as if you just invented fire, and then going through that process, and getting the early quick wins. As I say, I worked with this telco company. I worked into them for 4 years. You get a bit disenfranchised after a little while. So you get the elements and the excitement right at the start.
Yeah.
And that's where I pivoted to that. So I left mapping systems and joined the world of operational software because I loved my coding. I'm a .NET coder at heart. As you say, I came over into the world of pre-sales. I'm passionate, can tell stories. I love operations software. I love coding. So that's where I ended up going into that. And I felt like I could talk passionately about it.
Trigger, Tim, when you were leaving this post-sales, you said this was like the last journey into implementation. Was there a solutions consulting, solution architect role open in this operations company that you were like, you know what, that I've seen people do this role. I think I will enjoy it. Let me just apply for it. What was that transition like?
Do you know what? I'll tell you all the ins and outs, and I'll be very transparent. There was a mixture of a driver out and a looking for a role. So let's go into the trigger, if you actually want the really
Yeah.
interesting trigger. I was working for a British telecommunications company. The folks that I was working with suddenly realized, you know what, we could probably just get someone a little bit cheaper than Tim to work on this. And let's maybe have Tim work on our newest one, which would basically be a reassignment to halfway across the world, just as I had a new family. And I'm going to go into that. I also feel that post sales has you're on the customer's dime, but it's 9 to 5. So if you have to, and actually, I don't mind saying it was over to the Middle East, so it'll be quite a distance away from the family, and also it's possibly the wrong times of the weeks compared to where my other colleagues were working. It's about pre-sales it's harder work. You invest more time, but sometimes it's not a 9 to 5. Sometimes it might be one day you're going to do 9 to midnight because you're out with clients, you're building champions. And the next day you might be able to have some of that time back as you do the balance. So really love that as well. So my trigger point, to go back to your question, was an element of thinking, maybe with a growing family, I need to look at a new role.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was actually through people. So I haven't been to a cold interview since my first role in IT. So effectively, it's by building your network. And we talked earlier about building your network and being relatively active on social media connections. And it was a gentleman that I knew well, wasn't interested in the company he was at prior, but he came to me at the same time and he said, Tim, I work for this company. We've acquired this great technology. I know you will love it. And I love your passion. And I think you could sell this, Tim. This is where you should be.
Nice.
So he did a sales job on me, and I've never looked back since, candidly. So software and insurance fraud software. So we go to all these events with these personas, but actually when you go to a demo fest, you're suddenly amongst other pre-salers who are genuinely what you do, as opposed to being that kind of imposter in the area of software that you sell, which I quite liked as well. And again, going back to it, my 15 years of not being a pre-seller set me up well, I think, going forward as well.
That's a fair point. That experience was what you were able to bring in and excel in pre-sales. Now, you've been doing it for a while. You've seen many Cs, from services background or different backgrounds kind of enter either PagerDuty or other companies. When you think about top performers on your team, what are some characteristics that jump out at you?
I'll probably go back to my hiring criteria. So I talk about character, coachability, intelligence, experience, and the last one, which is curiosity. I run a tech fest every year. So each year we get our SC team together. Initially, when I came up with it 3 years ago, I said, we'll call it something, I don't know, we'll call it Tech Fest, obviously slightly inspired by Demo Fest. And then I'll come up with a better name later on. So obviously I never did. It's been called Tech Fest in PagerDuty. We run it regularly.
I can see how SCs would love that.
It's great. To your question earlier, so I actually shared with the team, when I do interviews, what is it I look for? So when I get an interview candidate, what is the thing I look for? And some of it's pretty darn simple. I've heard about a number of sales leaders that say, when I interview, I know I like that candidate because we just click. And I like to drill into what's the just click about? And I realize a lot of it is about what we're doing now. It's that ability to hold a conversation, and by the end of your half an hour, 45-hour long interview, to still be interested in talking to that person. Part of it is because the conversation isn't transactional. It's not an interview where it's ask default generic question, get boring dull answer.
Yeah, it's not scripted. Yeah.
And even then, the person, when you ask them a question, the person then might qualify what the question is all about. They'll answer, then you'll listen to what they've said and you'll make an observation. Then they will continue the observation. So it creates that conversational
back and forth. Yeah.
And that's why I quite often with candidates, I will simply say, "What questions have you got for me?" When they ask their question, is it an intelligent question? I'll then give them an answer. Have they listened and actually taken on board what I said? Do they ask a follow-up question about the content? Did they clarify? And where I'm going with this is such a good test of curiosity. So when I'm hiring someone, I'm thinking, how are they going to react when they're selling to a customer? Because at the moment, they're doing their biggest sales job of
That's
the
right.
one product they know inside and out, and that is themselves. So if they can't sell themselves, how are they going to get passionate and excited and curious about a piece of software or a capability or whatever we're actually selling? So to go into that, like it's so easy to say curiosity, but I wanted to go just that little level down to understand, how do you understand, how do you measure, how do you figure out if someone's got that versus just they ask a few good questions.
And that, just to pick up on that curiosity, I just did this webinar yesterday on trust in sales engineering, and the curiosity as the core, right? Because from a buyer standpoint, the audience standpoint, if your candidate is showing that level of curiosity where they're not just answering the question to like, okay, Tim asked, let me just answer, let's see what other question he has, but they're
Yep.
genuinely curious about, why are you asking that question? Did they address that question? Is there something else you would want to know about, about what that question was? I think that makes you feel that they care, right? And
100%.
that care creates trust, that you are in this conversation to ensure that you get the most out of the conversation, right? The buyer gets the most out of. It's not about, I've got these 50 features I got to show you and I have 45 minutes, let me just show all 50 of them. You may just need two of them to trust why you choose our platform, right? So I love that curiosity. Tell me more. What else do you look for in the top performers?
Yes. So beyond curiosity, it's interesting. So I'll go back to the interview questions again slightly and then go out from that. Ask what makes you special. So someone told me that's a great interview question. And I'll tell you what, nearly every pre-sale engineer I ask, never asks, what do you mean? Because that's a beautiful one. So we talk about in the demo. So when a customer asks, do you do compare releases or do you support WhatsApp? Rather than just answering straight away. And I have to admit, I did notice someone do the why is that important to you question, which I feel is it's getting a bit old school. So I like something more conversation would be better. But I like that, carry on that element of curiosity in there. So what makes you special? Follow up. I don't want to say it, but every sales engineer always does the very horrible thing of, I'm very businessy and technical all at the same time, which I'm going to take as a given, but it is a very important part of pre-sales engineering. I do want folks to understand, what is the business impact of some of these things. And if I can add one more into the mix, if I've got your book on me, I'm reading another book which is called Stories Sell. Love SCs that can meet a client or attend an event, capture something that someone says, and then just replay that story, whether it's either a story that they heard from a customer or their own personal story. So I want to hear storytellers.
Yeah.
And they're great. They're people that can really engage you engage a customer. And then technical has to be table stakes. Curiosity helps you become technical. And for those leaders out there, this is a quandary that I still have and always have over my 15 years or at least 12 years now of managing. How do you balance your techies that are probably less client facing with your more client facing but slightly less technical in certain areas?
Yeah.
And how do you create a team? Because if you go too far towards kind of the business speak, the value sales engineer that doesn't necessarily go into depth, or you could go too far into I've hired this army of techies.
Yeah.
They can't, holding a call or having a demo for an hour with just them just is too much for a customer to bear.
Some of my top performers have come from non-SE backgrounds. You think about teachers and musicians, right? People in performance that were just curious, right? They They didn't
Right.
get a computer science degree, but they were so curious to learn that the moment they came into the company, within months, they were, as capable of winning an opportunity as my techies were. And, so it's always been good to have that balance. Talking about
Yeah.
teams, let me pivot to another question that comes up often, right? You have a big team, you invest a lot of your energy, your focus, not just bringing the right people on, but ensuring that the team is achieving high performance, that the team is achieving its SC excellence that the company sees. What are some aspects when you look at your team, how it's grown, how it's matured? What are some aspects of excellence in your definition? Like, how do you look at the team and measure and say, you know what, our team is more high performing than another team that might be an okay performing
Yeah.
SC team?
It's a great question. I'm going to take a couple of angles on that one as well. So I
Please.
took on a global role 3 years ago. So one of the things that was very fascinating for me when I joined this company 8 years ago, we were just short of 100 million ARR. We're about to kind of bust through the 500 million mark. So
Wow.
we've all been on quite a lot of a journey. Obviously, I was here pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, so we've seen so much change in and around that. And when I joined, ironically, I was the pre-sales manager for EMEA with no other pre-salers. So I've effectively gone
Oh, you
from
were the founding SC, yeah.
so, so it was kind of like you got to do the job as well as build that team. So I kind of went from the IC into the first line manager, and now I've actually with the global role. One of the things I've got to do is make sure I've got decent first line managers in place. So one of my I'll go through a couple of the ones, but my top of mind is the coaching of the coaches so that I can actually feel that the visions that I get from our CEO and our CRO, I can then translate to my next in line, who you talk about trust, who I have to trust implicitly, then to have that message boil down to everyone. I'm not going to say I've got a massive team, but it's large enough that obviously I can't spend, a day with every member of the team. That would be a couple of months if I actually probably about 3 or 4 months if I tried to achieve that. So I've got to trust them explicitly. When I look about how do we, and your other question effectively was how do we make sure the team achieves excellence?
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier that the Tech Fest thing, one of the things that I've tried to do, and I do as I said, I read your book and I love all these books that are going around. 4 Disciplines of Execution. I try to think each year, what is the one thing? Because as leaders, we're all very guilty of recency bias, or we've just been to an exec meeting and there's 20 things coming in, and
That's right.
everyone, demos have got to be brilliant, and we've got to be running more validations, and your wrap up success decks have got to be better, and you've got to be defining value. It's just too much.
Chasing the shiny objects, right?
What's the one thing? Absolutely. Last year's Tech Fest, I did architectures. Look, we're not going to do we could do product updates and all sorts of stuff, but you know what? We're just going to focus on how do we do architectures? How do we make our solution fit into a customer's tech stack? And that's what we're going to focus on. And that's what we're going to improve on this year. So we'll let everything else, all the other noise will go on as is. But this is going to be the one thing that we focus on getting better this year. And that
That's
was last
interesting,
year.
Tim, you mentioned that because, I get this question a lot on how do you build a high performance team? And people think like it's a destination, right? That you go into a company and you're like, okay, you know what? The next 3 months we're going to be a high performance team. And the
Yeah.
reality is it's a marathon, it's a journey, and it's an ever changing. And there's no end to it, right? Even the best performing SC team, you can ask the leader saying, can you do something better? And they'll have a list of 20 things they can do better, right? So
100%.
I love that you're choosing one thing you can do.
It is. And I'm going to put hand on heart. So we did this last September. And yesterday I went to 2 of my leaders. And I think the proudest moment of my quarter was when I asked in Slack, leaders, can you just give me some quick examples of the architectures that have been created? And they came back, and the thread just went on and on and
Amazing.
on. You know, I don't even mind sharing to one of the individuals. I didn't use the word bloody, but let's just say in caps, this is bloody brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you, team.
Right.
I can't tell you how proud I am to actually see this come through, because you've taken what we agreed was going to be the vision and you've turned it into a reality. And to your point, we haven't massively exploded the team. I say you've got to do this now from one week to the next. It was an evolution and we evolved. This year is going to be, I don't even mind showing. The year before that, we did classic demos. So we had each of the teams, and it was across the U. And again, as a Brit that sits in London, we're quite privileged because everyone's mostly in and around this area. So we come in, we see each other fairly regularly. So we know what our stock demos all look like. But what I found with the folks in US, so the folks in East didn't always mix with the folks in West. The strat team we have is set apart from them. The individuals up in Toronto didn't mix that much. And obviously we've got APJ in Sydney and Japan. Nobody saw each other's, okay, we can get on a Zoom call, but we'd never seen each other's demos. So that's what we focused on the first year. This last year, this will be a test to see if any of my team watch this or listen to. We are going to do my plan, and now I'm saying it out loud. We're going to do stories.
Great.
I've done some on social media. If you ever see it at the moment, I've got some numbered stories that are going out.
Oh yeah,
And
I love your hashtag. PagerDuty can do that, right? Is that right?
That's the
Yes,
one.
love it.
PagerDuty does all that.
PagerDuty does all that. That's right.
Each one of those stories is numbered. So when we get together, when we are going to in September, I actually want to see if my team can match the numbers to which clients actually achieve the outcome. It's going to be a treasure hunt based on the stories. So I've given it away to anyone that listens. It's going to be a test now. If anyone listens to this, you can start hunting for them now. But I love that storytelling
That's
element.
great. I love getting into segue into that. I love the passion that you have for the SC team excellence. I love that, you're consistently thinking about what's that next big thing we can do, and enrolling everybody into that. Your LinkedIn, it was interesting. When I was just preparing for this, right? I was just looking at some of your posts, and there's this consistent drumbeat, right, of these stories that you're posting. So I know the sales engineering, the way we do thought leadership, the way we educate buyers or industry on what our platform can do. It's not just about what's on our website. People can go look at case, but you're making this effort as the leader to bring stories right through your own personal brand, right? So I love what you're doing, and I love that our profession is changing. But the question I want to ask you is how are you thinking about AI, and how do you think AI is going to change solutions consulting over the next couple of years?
It's everywhere, isn't it? So you can't avoid going to a conference without going AI. The amount of information that we as pre-salers now can glean from tools like Gong and get insights into what's going on. So both as a manager coaching and putting together all those beautiful value statements that historically we would have missed come together brilliantly from Gong. I think I'm going to go broader and then come in. I'm always questioning my dog walks and showers are always thinking time is the way I refer to it.
Yes.
And not when you're being
That's when all
shouted.
the other noise goes away, right? That's why these ideas come to mind, because you're like, I'm not thinking about anything else. So
Yeah. So I'm going to go tangent and then come back to the AI question. I keep thinking about the roles that we have. So you've talked about the sales rep, and we talked about the pre-sale engineer, and we talk about customer success. I'm going to throw in as the third angle as well. And we all have our roles in those individual pillars. I keep thinking about, well, what does the future look like in 10 years' time? And I keep thinking the role is going to converge on what pre-sales engineers do today, because dare I say it, are we going to become less technical? I think there's going to be different technology going forward. I think for me, as a hardened Java and .NET coder, I think I don't need to know the technical nuts and bolts of that language in the same way I did 10 years ago. I think as a pre-sales engineer, You just have to have basic understanding, and a lot of AI can do the rest for you. So you tech savvy, understand how to use AI to benefit you there. And I think we're going to actually see pre-sales doing a lot more of the selling stuff. And some of the things that I think you mentioned, actually interesting, you mentioned in your book about all the other things that sales reps do. I'm hoping a lot of that toil is going to start disappearing. So how to book deals, how to drive pipe and that sort of thing. And AI agents are going to hopefully start taking some of that away and also help us on the post-sales elements as well. So I think those roles may change a lot more, and I think it will help elevate the pre-sales role into a lot more as well. I've heard a number of people quote now that AI is not going to take anyone's jobs, but it's only going to take those that don't adopt and use AI.
Right.
Because pre-sales engineers, I think, look at everywhere, and I'm seeing a lot of folks now that are turning around and saying, so we implemented a system, our tool's called Abacus internally, so it sits on a lot of other foundational LLMs, and we use it for 101 different use cases from I actually I reduced my bills on my groceries by uploading 6 months worth of grocery receipts in it and told it to do. But I hear from pre-salers that were like, yeah, this probably would have taken me a couple of days to create the scenario. And you know what? I just sat there with GPT and it created my scenarios and the scripts I need to run and those sorts of things as well. So I'm seeing all of my team especially adopting it left, right, and center to do demo creation, activities, summarization. Obviously, it's in all of our products. I think if there's a pre-sales engineer out there that hasn't got AI now embedded somewhere in their product, maybe you should look around a little bit.
But rethink, yes.
Yeah, I'll jokingly say that. Maybe not necessary, but we can't avoid it. Can't run away with it. So got to embrace it.
Well, what I loved, Tim, what you said when I asked you about top qualities in your top performers, you mentioned curiosity, engagement, and that special storytelling, right? All three of those things are as human as it gets. You're not going to anticipate ChatGPT to come up with curiosity or create a level of human engagement that you can have human to human. Maybe it can tell good stories, but the way we tell stories and hear stories is probably going to be unique. So I don't see any world where AI is going to take over the SC role, to your point, as long as it complements what we're doing and makes our human life easier and our role easier to be human. I think that's where we'll continue to shine until people are. It'll be interesting to see how this rolls out. Really appreciate your insights, you taking the time to share your journey. Thanks to your uncle and thanks to that friend who thought about you as a solution consultant. Thank you for your commitment to your team and all the great insights you shared with us. Tim, so great to have you on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Thanks, Sachin.